game pressure.
Well, hopefully they're going to need it because Bleed are certainly out for blood. Gelida, the roster that coming into this stage, again, we genuinely thought we're going to be contenders, and so far they have been, guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really exciting to see this roster come back, and for me personally, the expectation, quite honestly, was probably just to see them make top 6. I wasn't really sure where to put them. However, they've put in some really competitive performances, and they've also been dominant against the lesser teams. The same can't really be said for Bleed, who have had a couple more hiccups getting into matches, whereas Gelida, for the most part, have looked really switched on from round 1. So you're intrigued to see how they go. As for Bleed, obviously, I'm probably being overly harsh. They've been incredibly good, and it's a flawless record. Every single win in regulation. Plus 13 rather round diff, only 2 ahead of Gelida, as you mentioned previously. There is a potential world in which that actually does matter. So overtime would be very intriguing for that particular storyline as well.
Yeah, I think that Bleed have certainly come into this stage with a lot of fire and fury, if you don't mind me just mentioning another team. And I genuinely believe that it doesn't really matter how close these games are with Bleed. For me, Jake, it's more about how they're looking in the server. Barring maybe the first 4 rounds that we saw of their entire stage, they have looked rock solid.
Yeah, they certainly have, and their very best is by far and away the best in this region. The only team I think that could stake any kind of claim to being a direct competitor and have any chance of really, dethroning them from that #1 position in Southeast Asia would be Fury, based on them going to majors and SIs alongside Bleed. Of course, that's no longer the case now for Stage 1 this year. 2 slots down to 1 means only 1 can go, so there is a little bit of that competition. It does mean there is also a bit of that stress that can be relayed over to Bleed. There's that pressure. There is only 1 slot. There isn't, okay, well, if Fury beat us in a best of 3, that's fine. We'll just beat everyone else. That's no longer the case. So imagine a grand final between Fury and Bleed. Can Bleed lose that kind of game? Absolutely. As we saw a couple of times last year, as good as they are and as good as they've been, that would be a danger match, and they've got to make sure they're in the best shape going into the playoffs because of it. We look at Reaps right now, but he hasn't been statistically their best player. Hoven actually has a very slightly higher rating than him by 0.1, so very interesting to see. And I think that's simply just down to his cost, which actually is only 58%, Rob. That is actually very, very low. Like, we're talking bottom 30% of the league low. So I don't know really what you could say in regards to that. He's just not consistent enough. But if he's going to pop off, he's going to pop off a lot in 1 round.
Well, I think that's actually been the discussion, hasn't it, guys? It's literally been Reaps is either all or nothing. I think even, was it maybe Mentalist who said that? He's either finding you 3 kills or he's dead and you've got nothing else to show for it.
I mean, if we've got the head-to-head graphic ready, I'd love to jump straight into that because it actually highlights my point quite well. Reaps and his cost is relatively low at 58%. So if we've got it ready, just throw it up. And I'm looking at him against Mr. Punch for this particular instance.
If you got it ready, just throw it up.
Because they both have a 58% cost. Despite that, Reaps is absolutely smashing him in terms of rating and kill potential and impact in rounds. So whilst the cost is kind of a little bit funny, the fact that it is so low, it goes to show that when he is on, he has just a massive impact.
It's the Reaps effect, and I think that if he'd been on any other team, it actually would have been a little bit more challenging to have that discussion. But the fact that you see so many players in Bleed have the impact that they do, I mean, you look at their EPS across the board, and literally every player is positive, I think barring 1. This is what you wanted to talk about, though, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Those cost numbers, again, very, very similar between the two, but it's Reaps who just absolutely smashes ahead in terms of kills and EPS and impact in these rounds. Slightly different roles, so it's not like to like in that regard, but I just wanted to find an example of 2 players who might be a little bit hot and cold, but you can still, if you're the better player, Reaps in this instance, be more impactful inside of the server, and that's something that we're eager to watch in this match.
I mean, if you go like for like, Jake, who are you taking out on top? Gelida their best day or Bleed?
I don't even know why you're asking me that question. Move on to the next topic, bro.
Well, see, there's this magical thing, Jake. I don't know if you know this.
Is it
It's
Philly?
called Phil.
I knew it.
It's
I love me
it's
some
the
Phil.
book of it's the book of philosophy, mate.
Is it the
It's-
PHIL Phil or the FILL Phil?
No, unfortunately, Phil is a good bloke, but Phil is not fun to do on a broadcast.
No, absolutely not. Look, at the end of the day, it's Reeps, right? He's got that star factor. The reason why I call him Keanu Reeps, he can clutch up, he can get multi-frags, 1vx's, good entries. But is he consistent right now? And I'm talking just like right now, probably not to the level that we've seen him before. But everything else I mentioned are massive positives that others on this roster can't necessarily bring. Who else is getting them entries? I mean, Terzla's the only one, the one that's positive. +2. Reeves is +4. I mean, Holvin, as I mentioned, is being technically slightly higher rating. He's not an entry player. He's actually -4 on the entry. And therefore, for me, yeah, absolutely, Reeves is the standout. The good news for Bleed, though, is that it's not Reeves or bust. Need to get that pretty clearly out there. Like, if Reeves is having a bad game, they got more than enough talent. As we go to the map vetoes, and we are going to be heading to Clubhouse. Did kind of touch on it there very briefly. That was a game that was played very recently. Bleed over Direwolves on this particular map. They started on defense. If the graphic is to believe, they will be on defense again to begin this. So, interesting that Bleed for the third time against their very direct rivals, Fury and Direwolves, and now Gelida, are getting a defensive-sided map on defense to begin. How does that happen? 3 from 3? I got no idea. But whoever does their vetoes is doing a tremendous job.
Yeah, well, I think that this is probably, in my opinion, guys, this is the map that I genuinely would wanted to have seen this game go to. But do you have a read?
Ooh, do I have a read? I suppose for Gelida, it is a little bit unfavorable starting out on attack. Again, club's only been played twice, but it's very defender-sided, and that trend follows in other sub-regions of APAC, so they are going to have their backs against the wall. If they were starting off defensively, I think I'd favor them slightly more. Again, considering that Bleed have shown that at times throughout this stage, they get off to slow starts, and Gelida probably one of the best poised to actually exploit that. Won't be the case, though, in this matchup. I'd be quite concerned if Bleed don't get off to a good start here on Clubhouse. Of course, not every objective is equally weighted, and things like cash CCTV has definitely fallen out of favor for defense, and in fact, are even attacker sided in some regions. So that'll be an intriguing curveball to follow in this match.
All right, well, let's not waste any time. Let's get straight over to Clubhouse. Devin Manning to run you through it.
Thank you very much, Robert. Yes, Club, one of my favorites, one of the staples, one of the classics, and this could well be a classic matchup, Mandy. Bleed have not truly been challenged as of yet. And Gelida were the ones to take down Fury in their opening game. They took down the Kings of Asia at the time, the reigning champs. Can they take down Bleed as well?
I think it should be a fun one for Gelida. I feel like the match against Fury being in week one's probably got a bit of an asterisk to it. Fury didn't look super activated early on in the stage, but I think as the play days have progressed on, they've looked a bit better. Whereas I think for Bleed, they seem to have looked pretty good from the get-go. Like, yeah, there are a few like scary rounds against the Sea Warriors and the like, but for the most part, they look pretty strong going into it. But yeah, I think for Gelida, this should be quite a challenging one against a Bleed who looked pretty warmed up at the moment in the match, or in the game at least. And yeah, I think it'll be a tough one, especially starting out in the attacking club.
Very true. Now, Bleed, they have historically loved this map, even if they haven't won it a lot. So obviously they won it just last week against Direwolves 7-4. But the real big games I'm thinking about, when I think of Bleed Clubhouse, I think of them playing Space Station, Virtus Pro, and W7M at the 6 Invitational. And these guys nearly beat W7N on this map. It was actually a 7-8. They almost won that series. Had they won that 15th round of that Clubhouse game, they would have actually beaten Virtus Pro in the playoffs, which is unreal to think of. So these guys, they're no slouches on Club, despite them having technically a negative win rate on it. It's quite a contrast to Gelida, who have just played essentially mid-tier local Asian teams on this map. So they may well be in for a rude awakening coming up against a team like Bleed, who have so much international experience playing Clubhouse.
Fanface is going to go by us for the start of this matchup. Both of the combination of Thatcher and Thermite is going to slip through for the attack. Not only that, but you've got all your ranged hard breach and static hard breach as well on the Thermite that'll go through. So for Gelida, at least opening some of these walls, playing the micro battles on the side of the attack should be made a little bit easier against Bleed. Not only that, but Two-Brow being banned out as well will mean that getting open some of these walls will be made even easier than it was before, and Azami as well. But what that means is you've left in still a lot of strong defenders there. Like, you've still got your Fenriers in, which can be quite challenging to deal with on this map. You've also got your Cades and your Bandits in as well. So I'm anticipating these guys to be able to play the trick game on the other side, and that's probably what we're going to have a look at early on in the early to late round.
Indeed. I just wonder how much we'll see Roam game out of Bleed, because they do love to play quite aggressively, this team. And they're smart enough to know how to play like the passive setup focus game, and I'm sure we will see that in the late round. But when the Valkyrie and the Solus are on the board, and especially the Mute, I assume some of these Mute jammers are put on the Roam, this could well be quite an aggressive hold. And I would love to see that. Gelida, obviously a very good roam clearing team, and they've got some solid operate. Wow, is that Blitz going to be stuck, Mandy?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow, that's a big pick. I like it.
I think this should be a fun one for Gelida. Blitz, Ying, you've got Jackal as well on the side of Mr. Punch, so probably the player that's going to be cutting off if they're looking to do a rush onto the bomb site here as well. Couple of Gelida players are going to spawn over on the garage side of the map too, and this could be easy access in through dirt, this could be easy access in through oil if IDFC decides to drop here. Doesn't look like they're going to overcommit to the idea though.
Yeah, well, it's a challenge because Bleed obviously going to be very good on this roam. They've got tons of setup for it. The Mute counters the Blitz, like you can't activate the flash within the radius of a Mute jammer, which sounds very strange, but yeah, little known interaction. And what's more as well, like Solus gets wall hacks on Blitz. Like when he's holding his shield up, the Solus can see him through walls. So like Bleeder actually even got some counters for the Blitz here on this roam clear. I assume Blitz is going to be used for the roam clear.
Yeah, it certainly looks like
Jackal
it.
could also assist.
Jackal on the board does make me think that they're not going to go direct into the bomb site, and they actually do want to get control of the top 2 floors. And for the most part, it kind of looks like they've already achieved that with a couple, 2 minutes to spare, essentially, in the round. All 5 players of Bleed look like they've comfortably jumped their way back onto the bomb site. They've completely vacated these top 2 floors, despite having the lineup, sort of, with the aid of the Solus to go and do that. So,
1, 2,
yeah.
3, 4, 5. Yep, you're
yes, we can count to 5. Yeah, I think Gelida have definitely achieved what they set out to do so far.
Yeah, but to be fair, I don't think Bleed are upset as well. Like, they've got a really strong fortified position on the site now. Half the round is done. These hatches are still going to be a little bit difficult to open up. Yeah, there are ingredients to do so, but...
they have no EMPs.
Yeah, no mini EMPs either, so that moto hatch actually might not get opened up. Is there a... Okay, so here the impact's going to slow things down, but we've got 2 more impacts now. Blue hatch is open. Where's the other electrical? I assume it's on the church wall.
I think so.
No, it's not. Okay. Oh, yeah, sorry, it is.
There we go.
Yeah.
Wow, very good.
Just got deployed. Yeah, so I guess Gelida are going to be forced here into some kind of kitchen execute.
I think they can achieve it from this position, to be honest. They've got... the Blitz should throw a spanner in the works as well for getting that entry down through the hatch. The translation's always a pretty tough period once you want to go through that for the execute. Not only that, but they've got plenty of smokes and flashbangs to try and use to cover some lines of sight as well. So I think if this is a well thought out attack, they could go for it. Hoven, though, has gone through all the way in the top floor, and it doesn't look like Gelida know. With only 30 seconds left to go, he could do some real damage.
He could single-handedly win this round. Even just the fact that he's got presence here might make things very difficult. There is a vertical angle player down below. He spots out one in the kitchen hallway. He takes him down. A second one for him. There is a trade, but it may be far too little, far too late. The plant is going down from IDFC, and it's confirmed. Now, Mark up above must secure a post-plant victory. Good angle. Good amount of damage as well from a player there. But Mentalist moving up the stairs, lands the critical shot, and Turdster can confirm that disable of the diffuser. A massive retake there from Bleed.
Not just a massive retake, but massive flank, man. Hoven all the way in through the top floor. Managed to sneak past all of the drone work from Gelida. I suppose all 5 players are alive. No one's there watching flank drones. Lonnet's probably even active on the flanks, right? So Hoven fully capitalizing on the opportunity to make his way all the way through the top floor, back down the main stairs, and catches them straight in the chaos of trying to drop down the kitchen hatch. That is not the time that you want to be flanked if you're an attacker, right? So Hoven finding the perfect timing on the execute to come through and essentially win out the round for Bleed.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I'm really impressed by both teams that round, to be honest. Like, the only thing that I guess you could point out and be like, what was going on there was that flank. Like, how did Hoven get allowed to flank up? I assume he had Valkyrie cameras somewhere. I don't know if it was in maybe garage or in secret, and if he used those Valkyrie cameras to allow himself to get to the top floor and then go for a big flank. But yeah, I think without Hoven, Gelida well could have won that round. Like, they managed to get the plant down, and they had maybe like some form of a post-plant position had they not lost those picks to Hoven. So yeah, despite Bleed kind of, I think, having a really solid setup and wasting a lot of time with that fallback roam, yeah, Gelida had a really solid go of it. I think this is going to be a very exciting game, Mandy, with
I agree.
what we've seen even just in the first round.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree with that as well. I think Gelida made a pretty valiant effort to make that execute work too. We pointed out earlier there was a ton of smokes on the board for Gelida, and there was no Warden on the other side for Bleed as well. So they actually, despite being in the numbers disadvantage, once they actually went for that execute, they still managed to get the bomb down, Dev. And that makes me think that like maybe if that flank hadn't come through, they actually might have been able to play the objective there pretty well, especially with the remaining players on the hatch, the Blitz kind of like running awry through the bomb site. There are a lot of good ideas there for Gelida, and honestly, Dev, I would have to agree with you totally. They did a good crack at that.
Well, we are just having a technical issue, as you guys can see on your screens. This will not take very long. As you can see, we can have a look at the game. Maybe we can speculate a little bit. Obviously, Mandy, pick phase is not over as of yet, and the timer is still paused, but we can have a look at what Bleed are looking to set up. Also look at their cameras. So Jim has been tentatively picked here, and we can see the operator lineup. They could potentially still change this, but I think that they're probably locked in more or less. And we're seeing that Solus come out again. This just feels like such a natural pick for a player like Turdster, who's always looking for playmaking opportunities. I think this is a great one for him, and even though we didn't actively get to see its impact last round, perhaps it could have even assisted in enabling that flank from Hoven by checking. If you're in blue, for example, you look up into lounge and you can see whether there are flank watch drones active, whether they're being watched, and enable a flank like that.
The other thing is like claymores as well, right? If you've got a claymore on the oil ladder or not, that's a potential flank opportunity if they haven't gone and taken garage there as well. So yeah, I think I agree with you. There are a lot of ways in which Solus can be used, especially through that mid-round intel, to go not only figure out where the execute's coming from, because you can see all the drone work, you can see all the utility, but then to also enable a flank like that as well. Solus is very versatile operator, Dev, as we learned since she's been introduced into Pro League.
Very powerful.
Yeah,
very
powerful.
versatile.
But in the right hands, of course. And I think, yeah, Turd is one of those players that I think will naturally fall into that role, like you've been saying.
Let's take a lot of skill. I'm just glad that Turdster's got something to play that's not bloody Mozzie or Warden, eh? It was a bit of a two-trick pony back in the day with the Mozzie Warden 1.5s, and yeah, the Solus, I think, just makes so much sense. Solus kind of feels like Valkyrie's cousin in terms of like the playmaking potential. Like, I used to be a big Valkyrie main, and the reason why I enjoyed it so much and why so many players are drawn to an operator that gathers intel like that is it just enables your creativity.
Knowledge. Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power, yeah. Like, you get that info, whether it's like, oh, this room's free, I'm going to make a flank, or I can see they're pushing from here. Not having no information is a form of information. Like when you know, or negative information, I don't know, you could probably phrase that better.
Negative information. Oh, that's good from you. I quite like that.
So
either negative information or anti-information? That doesn't make any sense. I like yours better. Yours
okay, negative information.
Yep.
You check, like, you see, oh, there's no one on drone out here, or there's no drones have entered this room yet. Like, that gives you the ability to make a play on the back of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what pre-placed drones are, right? They're like the absence of defenders being in the top floor is that there is no one playing the roam, right? Negative information. Damn, that's smart. That's good from you. I like that. Okay, here we go. Gelida are going to look to attack gym and bedroom. So that bomb site was being stuck out, and they've all started out over on this CCTV side of the map. Not just that, but we've got the Thermite in hand of IDFC. He's a bit wary that Mentalist could be tricking on the other side, so he's not going to place the exothermic charge down just yet. He's going to wait for his teammates to be postured up for the entry and to prevent that from happening. They've got the drone in. They've realized that no one's tricking it. That wall's going to be opened up nice and easy.
How much are they going to commit to actually clearing this as of yet, though? Are they going to go and try and just get the other wall open first?
Attackers have located a bomb.
By the way, no Maverick. We talked a lot about Maverick recently on Clubhouse. As you said, Mav and Thatch are both in. Option was there, but elected not to go for. That does mean that there's only one hard breach on this lineup. And no secondary hard breach is brought, so IDFC does have to be ultra careful that he doesn't lose his exothermic. They're actually not going to be open the con wall here, Andy. Like, they only had 2 charges. They had to choose, like, CCTV, Jacuzzi, con. Like, you only get 2 of the 3.
I have a feeling that Jacuzzi might be too much of a necessary evil for them to not open here. So
Yeah.
it seems like IDFC is going to rotate over that second exothermic charge to Jacuzzi wall and get that open. Now, what stands in the way of him getting that wall open is a castle barricade, preventing his teammates from being able to shoot the bandit charges off the wall. So for now, instead, it kind of looks like they're going to posture up to actually go for a map sweep instead. Sapper's over on the balcony. He's put some pressure out into Con. Now, with the absence of the cutoff, he's instead just going to try and use this window and the soft wall to his right as well to try and isolate that player inside of Cash. Reeves is getting really aggressive here on the balcony.
Yeah, and he does find a pick as well. Meanwhile, IDFC's gone down to a C4, so not only are Gelida struggling a little bit, but hang on a second, hold that thought. Mr. Punch has made his way to the top of the stairs. There's no one watching. There is a bait, and yeah, well played actually. The castle just rat-a-tatting some bullets out. Does bait the switch, and then Mentalist on for the swing. Quite a poor round from Gelida, all things considered, as Reeps finds his second, and it's flawless at the end of the day. A dominant performance from Bleed. Gelida looking lost from day dot.
Bleed looked a bit too comfortable, I think, on that defense. It felt like Gelida went and flip-flopped on what they wanted to do there in the mid-rounds. It looked like initially they wanted to go out and clear through Cash, but then not sending anyone in through the garage entry made me think, okay, they're not going to go and dedicate themselves to that. It looked like they were then going to go and flip their attack and try and get Jacuzzi open, but then instead they changed their mind, they put pressure out on Con, and at that point they had like 2 or 3 players loitering out on the balcony. That enabled Reach to get aggressive and get his pick. Mentalist got one on the C4. I think that was the one play that was actually doing the sweep, and then from there on it all kind of just fell apart. Bleed just looks pretty comfortable, slowly picking apart that attack, and Gelida looked pretty lost. They didn't really dedicate themselves to anything.
Yeah, I know. I saw red flags in the operator lineup, Mandy. Like we talked about, one hard breacher. There was also no util to clear the castle barricades as well. Like, you're basically going to be smacking them for the most part.
It's a risk as well, the one hard breacher, because like say you've got mirror on the bottom side, right, as well. Like suddenly you don't have range hard breach to go and deal with that mirrors. You're just relying on like an Ash charge sinking in. But then you also need Ash to clear castle barricades to go and shoot the bandit charges for the wall initially, right? So you're basically starving yourself for a lot of utility, the lineup that they've gone for. Now whether they chose deliberately to go for only one hard breach because they knew that there was no mirror in the last lineup or something, I don't really know. But to me it's a bit of a gamble, I would say. On club.
Yeah, a lot of things. Maybe when we see Bleed defend Gym Bedroom later in this half, we can dig into it again. But yeah, for now, a lot kind of went begging in that round from Gelida, which is sad because the first round was so close for them. Now they have a chance at attacking CCTV Cash, and credit to Bleed, they've actually done something a little bit interesting. We noticed there in Lounge, there's a mirror window facing into Garage, which I don't think I've ever seen before, maybe many years ago. We finally see the Maverick come out, and it's actually enabling this deep angle from DCH on the rappel. Mentalist does not have a scope on the mirror, which is a very strange choice.
Means that you scope in quicker, right? Is it
Yeah.
run quicker? Sorry. Is it run quicker
No,
or
it's
scope in quicker?
it scopes in about,
Yeah.
I think it's 10% faster, but
I see.
15% faster. But yeah, I mean, the iron sights on Mirror's gun are not that good, in my opinion.
I have a feeling that the strategy is going to work out relatively well for them, to be honest. Mr. Punch here is going to go for what looks like a garage take, getting some early info. Not only has he spotted out the play inside of Rafters, but he's now also seen the mirror setup as well. That spells a little bit of danger for Gelida if they want to dedicate themselves to this push. Now, the exothermic charge to the wall will mean that CCTV wall is open, but from here on out, they've got a pretty big decision to make. So they then go and dedicate themselves to clearing out Rafters and face the mirror, or do they then go and flip their attack? Pretty hard one.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I'm not sure what the answer is. I mean, for now, they are seeming to commit to Rafters, but Mr. Punch has really taken a lot of damage to the goo mines, which is quite frustrating. Great read from Hoven picking Elysian. He's the perfect operator to play that Rafters position. Oh no, that's frustrating. IDFC is going to get blinded by that, but here comes one. Mark is going to get taken down, but not out. He actually jumped directly into side. DCH is just going deep, but he doesn't check his angles, and he dies. There's a good trade. IDFC getting in with some flashes. It's up to him and Sapper now as Mark is still on the ground. Right at the top of red is Reeps there waiting. Biding his time. IDFC goes down, and it should be pretty easy now. Despite that initial numbers advantage coming through from Gelida, Bleed are looking very solid, and they have info on both of the last 2 players now as well. As Reeps and Turd shape up together. Oh, good deep angle. He's going deep for it. He's not going to try and revive. He's just getting with the pistol, and oh no, Mark went down to the goo mine of all things.
No.
It could have
so
been a close
sad.
round from Gelida, but yeah, pretty devastating to lose it like that.
Oh man, I really thought that Gelida had it there in the mid round for a little bit, to be honest, Dev. I thought like somehow they managed to find the timing on the player in the rafters, simultaneous with the site entry, but somehow Bleed were pretty composed there on the retake. The remaining 2 players, Reaps especially in top red. Yes, even though all those Yun Kenzels did get sent out, he somehow managed to find a blind spot from the blinding and was able to take down the remaining 2 players that were inside of the bomb site. So Bleed still looking pretty postured so far in this matchup. 3-0 on a scoreline on defense is nothing to scoff at. They've done really well here so far. But overall, Dev, just such a strangely paced round. They really tried to seek this opportunity. And I think ultimately, Dev, overcommitting to the idea a little bit. I think once some of these players had fallen down, it probably would have been a good idea to maybe like back off from dedicating themselves to that side push and try and recompose and go for something else. There was still plenty of time on the board. But Gelida, yeah, I think overcommitting to the idea that they went for there.
Yeah.
I am puzzled.
Oh, well. Yeah. Yeah, we've seen good things from Gelida in this game, which is nice. I just want to see some of that translate to the scoreboard because this is a solid team. I mean, I'm a little bit biased. I've always loved like this old roster. Sapper, Onigiri, obviously, who's now substituting, but like this is such a classic team. And I want them to do well. Obviously, I want Bleed to do well as well. They're probably APAC's best hope internationally at the moment, but this should be a tight game. It should be a good game. And while the rounds have, to some degree, been pretty close, Mandy, like that, I want to see that translate into results.
I think Gelida don't look completely lost in the server. I think that's a pretty good sign for these guys. Okay, that's pretty scary. Turd is right there. When someone was just repelled right next to him. I have a feeling that Gelida will probably not know that Turd is there for the whole round, because this is a very unlikely spot for them to drone. Not only that, but Turd on the Solace can even spot out where the drone work is going down as well. So the more time that passes here, the more lethal that Turd will become in this flank position. And we have seen Gelida previously falls to a pretty lethal flank from Hoven all the way from the top floor. So, you know what? You fool me once, whatever. You fool me twice, yeah, you know, it's not looking so good for Gelida.
Very true. So, I think by this point in the previous round, Bleed had fully forfeited the map and Gelida had got that info. I think that we haven't quite established that as of yet. Gelida still have quite a lot of work to do here. But at least like they actually brought the EMPs this time. Realistically, they do have the tools to address this.
Oh, they're actually going to drone it. No way.
They pretended they didn't, though.
They bluffed
like,
it as well.
They definitely saw him,
they
right?
definitely saw him. Absolutely,
Yeah,
they know he's there.
going for it.
Wow, that is some diligent drone work. Surely RDFC gets it here. Or Ted's just going to sit
just
there
waiting.
and wait. Oh,
I mean, they just have to push him out somehow.
Oh,
Oh,
Turd,
no,
mate.
here we go. Turd tried. I mean, not the greatest
Oh,
use
God.
of the Solace, but hey.
Oh,
It was a fun
God.
little exchange, Mandy. You spotted it very
Yeah.
early on. And, yeah, they got it in the end.
What is going on there? Interesting. Why is he shooting around the cage? Charge? Do you know at all?
I personally do not.
I do not. Okay, I'm once again puzzled. Okay, so there's 30 seconds left. Now, the one thing that Turd has been able to do, even though he's died, is waste a whole lot of time. And so now, Gelida have to scurry along for an execute. I think the kitchen hatch is open now, so if they want to try and translate it for that, they can. But instead, they're going to go for a triple wall. This is way too late, Dev.
20 seconds to play. Bleed looking very ready for this push. Gelida, you're going to have to be explosive. You're going to have to make this count. DCH with diffuser in hand. Reaps, oh, he's almost got this angle. There's a big pick for Mr. Punch, but Mentalist is still immovable on the site, and Bleed have, well, simply withstood and allowed the timer to bleed down to 0. Nice attempt from Gelida, but yeah, just far too little, far too late.
Absolutely. Even though Turd did eventually fall in his roam, what it did do is it forced Gelida to actually, you know, divert their attention and go for the roam clear. And yeah, while it was done pretty handily, somehow RDFC didn't actually lose his life. He gets the 90-degree flick onto the player of Turd. By the time they actually hit the bomb site, there was only about 30 seconds left to do it. Not only that, but in my opinion, Dev, they probably made the wrong decision there. I don't know whether it was like Kitchen Hatch was remained closed or something like that, but then coming down from Moto and then trying to make a triple wall push work when they hadn't gotten open the wall, they probably didn't really have the utility to initiate an entry from going down either. It's pretty puzzling to me, the way that Gelida have been playing and reading into these late rounds, and Lee just looks so comfortable when it comes to the execute.
Oh, very true. So what can Gelida do about it? Like, they've pretty decisively lost, I'd say, 2 of the 4 rounds in this half and had a real shot at 2 of them as well. So where to move on from here? I mean, realistically, losing any more rounds of their attack would be pretty grim. I don't know if you feel the same, Mandy, but
Yeah.
I feel like Gelida has to come away with 2 attacks.
I think it's a round-by-round thing at this point, right? Like, yeah, for Gelida, yes, ideally they don't go down to like a 5-1 or a 6-0 from this position here on out. They try and win out too. We often say that 2 attacks here on club is the pass mark. Is that what we say these days, or do we not say that anymore?
I mean, it depends. It really depends. We had a really attacker-sided club game in OC the other day.
I don't want to talk about that one. That was
that was.
Yeah. That
So
I don't think I'll ever.
I don't know what to say.
I don't think my brain will ever recover from the cells that I lost in that game. That is all I'm saying. I don't know about you, Dev, but like that was a rough one, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah. All right, so Gelida, what have you got for this round? This is gym, right? I'm pretty sure this is gym, unless it's bar. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, I was worried it was bar for a second. I was going crazy. Yeah.
Turd is spawn peeking.
Of course he is. It's Turd.
Out of this jacuzzi wall. Is there anyone there? Is someone there?
I think so.
Damn, that
Oh,
was
you've
so
already there.
underwhelming. I was so excited for that. Oh, they're all here.
That is how it happens, though, Mandy, right? Like, you go for your spawn peek, and sometimes you're like, oh, never mind. Guess what? We have 2 hard breaches this time. 3 hard breaches. They went from having 1 to having 3.
I quite like. This is good. You know what that means? That means they have a lot of tools to pick apart the entire map. And that's good, because they've actually all slipped through the ban phase. And there's a mirror on board as well for Asfi. So they've got plenty of this like range hard breach. They don't really have a lot to do with this. Hey, it's really just the Selmas. They need to be pretty careful about that. But alas, yes, opening walls is a good thing on Clubhouse.
That Selma has now countered the mirror window. For the most part, the mirror itself's actually not been destroyed, but obviously a full crouch hole underneath it does make things a little bit awkward. Hoven's going to try and fall back. Unfortunately, the Gelida weren't able to cut off any of these players falling back through the connector external wall, which is yet to be breached, despite having 3 hard breaches. And now, we see external jacuzzi opened up. Leader's still not too unhappy about this. They still have really solid position behind that mirror window for 1.
So while they've managed to open up the exterior of the map, the interior of the map is now a problem. And a problem that they don't really have that many tools to fix, in my opinion. I don't know how many Selma charges DCH has got, but getting this mirror dismantled in Mensel's position is going to be pretty tough. He's got 1 more, but he's on the wrong side of the map to do so. To me, this has to be enabled by the flashbangs, right? Sapper's got them cooking at the moment, the Candelas, and off the back of that, they need to somehow convert this into a pick.
Do they know something I don't? There's nobody in here.
There's no one
They're
here.
completely bewildered. Yeah, Gelida are starved for information. At least they have time. They don't have numbers, but they do have time. There's an opportunity here for Sapper to get a wall bang, but he doesn't know about it. He's actually taken a big kill. Hoven finds the double, though. Where is this trade finally comes through? But IDFC is left all alone as Turdster manages to take down DCH after his entry. Now a 1v2 for a very low HP IDFC. Newest player on this roster. See what he can do. Diffuser is on the ground. Actually tempting with the pistol. I'm not sure why he'd go with that. Didn't want to reload. Already was exposed. Now he's got that reload done. Gets the 5.56. But Turdster is holding the angle and finds his head. 5 rounds straight for Bleed, Mandy. And yet another close round. But close doesn't mean anything if you can't rack up anything on the scoreboard.
Yeah, really puzzling one there for Gelida. It kind of felt like they went into their tactical timeout and went, okay, we're struggling because things are staying closed. And then they all went hard breach, but they didn't really know what to do with it. Do you know what I mean? I don't know how much you would agree with that.
They didn't open con.
Yeah,
they
that's
didn't
what
open
I'm
con
saying.
until...
Like, yeah, you know, the order of operations, it kind of wasn't there, even though they had the equation, you know? And
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
it is.
so if you want to play really basic, like step 1, open up CCTV. Step 2, open up con. You could even open up con first if you want. It really kind of doesn't matter. Even do the thing that I think it was Bliss did at SI, where you have the Maverick open up the line while someone's actually holding an angle on con, so you might even kill someone on the cross. And then you start to address like the CCTV / cache / top red hole. You counter that mirror. You start to put the pressure on. And then when people fall back, you can potentially kill them on their retreat. There's just so many better ways to do that, and that's without even making things too complicated.
Very strange things are going on in the camp of Gelida. Now, whether this is just down to the fact that maybe they weren't expecting Clubhouse, and so maybe they're not as well drilled on this map or something like that through the veto. Maybe they haven't done enough dry runs to have made this work, but a lot of the decision making that they're going for here has been quite puzzling, to be honest. And I think in that essence, Bleed have been given a lot of wiggle room on the defense, which they've like fully capitalized on in every single situation. Like any time that there's a hole in the attack, they've just filled that hole instantly. And that's like that's sort of just what Bleed do. They're such a fast-paced team that you can't really give them that wiggle room. Otherwise, they'll take it and then they'll shoot you. And that's been pretty bad so far for Gelida.
Very true. One thing about Bleed is they always have their guns up. Like you never catch Bleed without their guns trained on an angle or without them ready to swing you.
Yeah.
Speaking of, Sapper can't even walk past the hole he's made without taking a quarter of his HP as damage. Really solid setup here. Reaps is even protected with these castle barricades down in lounge, and he's got a BPC to use as well. Now, Mr. Punch is a pretty solid operator, being the sledge to counter these castle barricades, but it doesn't mean it's going to be easy.
Okay, so Maverick on the board does mean that the wall can be Mav-tricked open, which is a good start.
What's Turd holding? What angle is he watching right now? Is he contesting the breach?
I
Can we
do
have a look
not
at-
know.
Oh,
I think he's just on a
thrown it
camera.
on a camera,
Yeah,
right,
okay.
okay. I thought he was contesting the Mav holes. Bit brave.
That could be a fun one.
This feels way too passive for me, for Gelida. We need to see a more proactive approach to address this setup, especially Reaps, who's still very fortified here.
It looks like, once again, they're going to try and sneak in to deal with Reap. So Sapper's all the way down here inside of Mini, and he's just gone and backstabbed him completely. But never mind, there's a trade immediately that comes out from Mentalist all the way at top red. There is a bit of presence out on the ground floor, but then translating it from the ground floor to the top floor is the tricky part. When you've got a BP looking at you, and you've got 2 players in rafters, Garage is pretty dangerous here.
At least that bulletproof has now been destroyed. Mr. Punch is making his way up through Secret. DCH is now in Garage. Oh, a player's just going to jump over. He does find one before he's traded on back, but realistically, Mr. Punch should be able to trade this. No! Turd finds him. 6-1. Untouchable is this man. He doesn't need the Warden. He doesn't need the Mozzie. Give him Doc and he will farm. Now Mark and IDFC in a 2v3. But Mandy, they have made good progress. Finally, they have cleared out Garage, but numbers in deficit. Oh! Wallbang! But it's the Doc, and Turd can just revive himself. All the way back up to full HP, back under cover. Flash could enable this. IDFC needs to cover. It's Mark with the diffuser. He doesn't have the ability to vault over through the hole. He's got to jump through this window here. Mentalist, he's taken out. IDFC needs to be good for another, but Turdstar, he's not done. Diffuser now in pocket. 15 seconds. Turdstar holding behind the green box. He knows he doesn't have to peek. IDFC's got to land both of these two. He knows where the last is. And he will just have enough time to get this diffuser down. Asfi must clutch up for the perfect half. The plan confirmed! Gelida! IDFC, the rookie, he clutches up. Finally, Gelida have found their first round.
Oh man, poor Asfi. They're on the 1v1 situation there. 8 seconds on the clock means that they can just get there under diffuse in time, what IDFC could, and he could pop up and get the kill as well. And somehow when Asvi actually entered into the bomb site, he didn't actually know where the plant was going down either. But the thing that bothers me the most about that is that the instant trade didn't come through, right? Like the player behind the green box has just died. Where is the repeat to go for that trade?
Should be swinging immediately on that, right?
I know that's a bit of a nitpicky thing to say, and you could easily make the argument that there was little time, so maybe he could have just played the time, which is essentially what he did there. But yeah, Gelida with a big comeback there, honestly. Those 2 players there being able to isolate the player on top of red, with the flashbangs, making sure that the players in cash weren't part of the equation once they took that fight there. They took the 2v1, got into the bomb sites, played the trade game, and then somehow IDFC manages to win it out in the 1 versus 1. This was the most peculiar part of the round for me.
Both jumped at the same
Why
time.
did they do that? They committed to the double drop, and you know what? It worked out for Turd, but it didn't work out for the round.
Yeah, it realistically should have worked out for the round. I mean, this was just a 1v2 clutch from IDFC. Not much more to say there. He really stepped up. I think you hit the nail on the head there. Like, Asfi needed to swing as Turd died. He needed to swing the Condor at that exact moment. Not doing so was what cost Bleed the round, essentially. But yeah, Gelida finally had their first, but I just want to give a moment to appreciate how good Bleed are. Like, even that round, like, everything they do together. Even look at the fact that Reaps died at the bottom of red, right? And you've already got Mentalist coming down red stairs. Yeah, like he was already coming down red stairs before that engagement happened because he was preparing to support his teammate. And that's just how this team works. Like everything they do together. Let's make a plate and try and kill the player bottom garage. Yeah, let's both jump off rafters at once. That's the kind of synergy that is the marker of a really top team. Sapper, oh, he's got to time this right. He does get the kill on Hoven. He loses most of his HP for it, but a kill is a kill at the end of the day, and that's a huge amount of util bled.
Wow, I mean, that's so random. Hoven's probably turned around and be like, what on earth has just happened to me? That is criminal. Meanwhile, Reaps is going to try and take down some of these players over in the ground floor. Turd is going to go for the pinch over from the strip side of the map as well. They have got info on the player inside a bar. DCH, a foot is sticking out, whether he knows it or not. He knew absolutely nothing, as Turd can take him down from the other side.
These goo mines have been constant. I just heard one, I think it was Reaps. Yeah, he's pulling it out now. But he has already deployed his util on the ram. The auto breaches can stop the floor. Very good. I don't know, I feel like Bleed's actually in a really solid spot, man. Despite losing that opening pick, DCH went down for nothing. All the hatches are open, over a minute to go. Really solid. Well, maybe not all the hatches, but you know, this stock one won't last long. And they're already bleeding out some of this util on site as well. Canisters.
I think decision-making period here is pretty important for Bleed to be able to convert this one. It does look like they're poised for a kitchen hatch drop, especially having cleared out the entirety of the back of Arsenal from that vertical as well, and having Turd positioned here inside of Dirt to make sure that, you know, he can play the crossfire from when that blue push comes through as well. So the fuse has actually been dropped on the ground from Aspie. They're going to go to look for kills first.
Turd's position has been revealed, but Reaps has also found his pick. So this is very awkward now. Oh, Mark, be careful, mate. What are you doing?
Oh, no.
What is going on? The fat finger.
Oh, no.
He's going to die because of it, and Sapper now has to clutch up 1v2. He could get info on this plant if he used his gadget, but he hasn't as of yet. Oh, massive impact! A 4K on the round! Sapper! This guy's insane. He's aced up, and he's kept them alive. Gelida, you've got one man to thank, and that's this guy right here, Sapper the God.
I can't believe what we've just watched him. I actually cannot believe what we have just watched. Sapper somehow manages to find an ace. He does the most random run out onto Hoven. Probably had no idea what he's just died to until he did a 180, got off his drone and was like, uh-oh, there are Solace on the board, hey. Then somehow, Mark gets on his camera in the middle of a gunfight, and then Sapper clutches it in a 1 versus 3. That could not have been a more chaotic round if you tried to script it, Dev. That was crazy from Sapper to somehow find an ace in that situation.
Yeah, Sapper's a god. I don't know what to say. He's insane. He has just stolen a round that should squarely have been Bleed's. I also don't know what was going on from, was it DCH? Who was it that was in the site underneath the kitchen floor trying to contest it that just gets on the camera? Mark, yeah, man, bro, those fingers.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Don't hit that button by accident, man.
Oh, man, it is Struggle Street. Yeah, I mean, this kill first to start things off. Hoven's probably like, oh, no, danger. And then he's on 1 HP for the rest of the round as well.
Yeah,
like,
he got 4 kills on 1 HP.
How has Sapper found 4 kills and no one is looking at him? Like, wow. I mean, impact kill, fair enough. And then Aspie's just not looking at him because he can't even go through the rotate. Yeah, that's crazy.
Sapper's not even that pumped. He's just kind of laughing at that as well. That was awesome from Sapper. I love to see that. Bleed to their next round, and they're wasting no time whatsoever. Hoven's already in the building on the Brava with the entry. Asfi's coming to support, and he's opened up a really solid line of sight. This is just what you expect out of Bleed. Like, they're so fast, they're so well coordinated, they already know their plan. and the round has barely even started. It's beautiful. Already putting a huge amount of pressure here on this CCTV side when their bomb side is over in gym and bedroom.
I quite like the introduction of the Brava as well from Hoven, especially when you're the likes of, you know, the Maestro's in play. So Taylor's just found a kill onto Sapper, maybe feeling a bit too overconfident from his ace in the last round. The Claymore. Easy first
Who was
pick.
that Claymore?
I have no idea. It looks like on the balcony somewhere, right? Oh yeah.
I think
there
it
you
was it? Oh, okay. Well, Asfi took a lot of damage. I assume that Sapper got a few bullets in before he died. Oh, it must have been, yeah, okay. There are 2 Claymores here, I guess, or they put another Claymore down since because he jumped out and then still a Claymore there, so.
go. Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Interesting.
Alas, what I was saying was I quite liked the idea of the Brava into the Maestro as well. I'm not sure how quickly they managed to identify that, but I think fairly good counter for this situation as well. And the bring along double hard reach too. And also Ash, so plenty of stuff to deal with mirrors. I feel like at the moment for Bleed, they've got all the tools that they need to break apart this defense slowly.
Yeah, very much. As you say that, they've opened up the con wall looking at Ash and has a deep angle into sight. It's waiting for someone to walk by and get a kill. He's checking. There's no mute jammer on the wall. Mentalist can open that up seemingly for free. Thirst is having a phenomenal game, by the way. Ooh, is that an impact? Well, damage actually, funnily enough. Mark has been taken low and now finished off. DCH finds one. What are you doing, Mr. Punch? Getting very aggressive. DCH has gone down. IDFC versus the world. That's the first. We've seen big clutches already from Sapper last round. IDFC now has to do it this round. The Mentalist swings and finds him. Bleed cruise their way onto match points.
Very clean attack there from Bleed. They didn't, you know, they didn't overcommit to the sweep across the map. They did what they needed to, get the garage entry in, make sure cache is completely vacated, but then from there on out, they flipped over their setup, made sure they had con control, go over to Kajusi, deal with the mirror, go for the execute from there. That being said, Gelida did get a little bit over-aggressive, I would say, in some of their peaks through the mid-round there, which probably enabled Bleed even more so to convert that one into the late round. But I would say overall, Bleed, I think, fully utilized every single piece of their utility to slowly break apart that top floor bomb site, and that made Gelida feel really uncomfortable on the defense. Maybe they felt like they were forced to go for the peaks that they did in the end, but either way, they were pretty ill-advised, and Bleed punished them for it.
Yeah, Bleed are just so good, man. I don't know, I really enjoy watching Bleed even when they are kind of farming, just because they're so good.
They're really good.
In their current form, they are hands down one of the best teams in the world. And you're going to have the snobs from Europe and North America be like, these guys are like, mate, they could be top 8 at the next major, and I would not be surprised. Like, just the level of fundamentals you see out of this roster. Really solid team. I'm not saying that they're going to beat FaZe Clan the next time they meet, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they continue taking scalps off of these big name teams, right? Like, these guys are so good, and they keep that form up in their local league as well. We see so many teams struggle locally, mainly from other regions. Like, a lot of the big teams have had a few notable losses, but like, you know, these guys, they're in great form. They 2-0'd Los at SI. They were 1 round off of beating Virtus Pro. You know, they beat Team Liquid. They got a map off of W7M, you know, the world champions. Heard of them? One of the only teams to do that. And they come back to Asia League and they continue that level of form against these teams that simply cannot keep up.
I totally agree with you that they're a force to be reckoned with. And I feel like we can dive into this point about, you know, them being in their local league and being strong a bit later on. But for now, I think the round is playing out. So I don't want to delay this too much because this is a pretty interesting setup that Hoven has got going. So he's using Aspi's shield to see through the glass into rafters. And he's using it to shoot down some of these Wamai gadgets, try and find a pick. Not only that, but he's also Capitao. So if he wants to sink some of his utility, he can do that behind the safety of his teammate. Oh, that's dangerous.
Expose himself for a brief second, and that does tell us that Gelida are watching him. Now, can he make this work? Oh, no, he gets down, and there's no one to back him up. Mark has managed to stay alive, but here we go. Mentalist has come there to support. Classic Bleed. Not to allow this to trickle down. However, Sapper has had a good reply. Now, Hoven has been picked up, but the Goos are still at large despite the Legion going down. Big C4 from DCH. This has been a phenomenal reply here from Gelida, all up to Turd and Hoven. Hoven's in a really awkward spot now, low HP. Turd is still farming 11 and 3, looking for more. Don't ride it over until it's done, Mandy, but this has been a great round from Gelida.
Oh, nice pick as well from DCH onto Hoven, who is already pretty low, and that leaves Turd in the 1 versus 3. Now, there is a player in Rafters. I don't know who they are, but don't peek. They know. Turd knows. Oh, he's in the Shadow Realm though, so he goes to the peek. It's actually Mr. Punch on the other side. No, it's not. It's DCH. Both the MP7 brothers. And Turd thinks the better of it because he can't quite get rid of that Fenrir gadget and is going to either go onto the roof and chill out for a bit or make an attempt at this 1v3. And he fails. Mr. Punch can take him down pretty easily.
Good read from Mr. Punch. Well played there from Gelida. We saw a good active defense, didn't we, Mandy? Like, Bleed is so clever and creative on their attack. I really like the idea of using that Monty shield as a bit of a mirror window, but yeah, obviously didn't work. Really active from Gelida.
There was some good utility sunk there from Gelida. Once they realized that the Rafters push was going through, they had not one but 2 players there, one on the window, one on the longer part of the Rafters. And yeah, from there on out, they also sunk some good C4s as well from within the bomb side as well. So yeah, ultimately there for Gelida, just things going the right way. Not only that, but I think they even found some kills on the vertical, as there were some players in the ground floor too. So just making sure that they bode their time and held onto the lines of sight that they could comfortably play. That's something more, a little more defender-sided. And yeah, a clean round there from Gelida, although it was a good idea from Bleed.
Gelida looking a lot better on their defense than they did on their attack. Perhaps, maybe with the exception of that gym bedroom round. I don't know, maybe that's a big call to make actually, because even the first round of defense, they only won thanks to Sap's ace. I think Bleed are just so good on their attack. Yeah. It's a pleasure to watch, and that was really the only convincing round we've seen for Gelida so far, I would say. Both of the other 2 they've won were on clutches, a 1v2 and then a 1v3 or 4, right? So
yeah,
maybe Bleed need to keep an eye on this, because the majority of rounds they've lost this game have been to clutches. Maybe that's one of their few weaknesses at the moment. And it sounds strange to be knocking on a team that's currently 6-3 up, but like that's where Bleed are right now. They need to be looking at the tiniest little improvements that they can make, because that will make the difference between making main stage or not making main stage at upcoming majors. It's how do we lock in our 3 versus 2s, our 4 versus 2s, our 2 versus 1s. The minute fundamentals they're already so good at, but there's always room for improvement. Ooh, speaking of.
Ooh, that's quite nice.
Detail.
I do want to piggyback off your point that we were talking about for Bleed earlier as well. I think they really are a force to be reckoned with, both locally and internationally. But something that like Hollis was like sort of mentioning in his interview, I know we didn't get a lot of it, but it was that the quality of Rainbow Six that they get here in especially the BO1 phase and even in practice out of the Asia League is not like that high. And something that he was saying was that when he gets to the best of 3s, he's actually genuinely looking forward to having like better games of Rainbow Six. And I think for Bleed, they can be sort of skill caps in their situation, being locally here inside of Asia. And I think it's important for them to not only maintain their form here in Asia, but also be learning things that can be applied internationally as well. And that's a really hard balance to hold when you're in APAC. Anyway, there's been some really good stuff here from Gelida, meanwhile, on the defense as well. Not only has DCH managed to trick the wall while the castle barricade was open in gym, by the way, but they also haven't managed to make the entry work on the other side of the map either. So really nothing is going well for Bleed right now. Gelida are holding on.
I mean, credit to Bleed, they played this pretty well, but Gelida was just one step ahead. Like you said, DCH actually managed to trick both walls. Firstly, he did over here on CCTV, and then he had a good read that Bleed wanted to go and rotate and get Jacuzzi next, and he actually ran over, despite there being a Lion scan active, and got back to site in time to trick that second one. Really good timing. He even called his teammate to come and help. Sapper has now lost his life. I don't know, despite the early round going against Gelida, it might actually be possible for Bleed to make good on this. Mark, though, he's still alive. He's looking for another one, and he's taken down Asfi all up to Reaps now. Mark has really farmed this round. He got half his kills. More than half his kills have come from just this one round. Big play from him. Gelida have actually strung together 3 defenses now. Perhaps all is not over yet.
Very solid round there for Gelida. They really won out in the minigame battle on Clubhouse. They're playing the trick game, not just on the CCTV side of the map, but somehow he rotates all the way to the other side of the map, like literally to the other side of the top floor, and then also manages to trick the Jacuzzi wall. Not only that, but he tricks the Jacuzzi wall while the windows are both open that are leading into him doing the trick, but somehow there are no players on the attack to take him down from there. So he finds the perfect timing to take down the exothermic charge. And from there, Bleed just looked pretty lost. They didn't have anything open for them. They had to go for a last-ditch swip on the other side, but then even then, the entry didn't go their way. Somehow, Gelida able to find the opening pick and then translated it from there, even though there were some pretty scrappy trades going on back and forth. Really good run from Gelida.
Yeah, good enough that Bleed have actually decided to take their tactical timeout. Now remember, in the first half, it was after losing 4 rounds in a row that Gelida took theirs, and they actually lost the next one. So that was really desperate. I think for Bleed right now, they're not quite desperate yet, but you really don't want to be losing any more rounds here. You should be able to lock out the full 3 points from this game. And critically for Bleed, it's just about getting back on the horse when realistically there's only been 2 rounds that they convincingly lost. The other 2 that they lost were clutches. So Bleed should be able to look at that and say, we just need to tighten things up a little bit. Of course, they are going on to Church Arsenal, which they had a really solid attack onto, and then Sapper just ace clutched. So if I am in Bleed's shoes right now, I think that I would be pretty confident with the majority of the push. It's just about tightening up a few things.
I would have to agree with that for Bleed. They need to retain the composure here on the attack, and attacking a clubhouse can always be quite challenging. Especially against a team like Gelida, where at the moment they're playing a pretty proactive game on the defense. They're trying to be active through all points of the round, from the early game to the late game, and they're not wasting any of their time or space. It can be quite tricky. And I think for Bleed here, yeah, taking that tactical timeout just to reset mentally and completely say like, okay guys, we're dying to silly mistakes. Even though they're trying to break apart the map methodically, they're not doing it methodically enough because they're not doing it step by step. They're not waiting for their teammates to complete their previous one before doing the next one, right? So taking that tactical timeout is a great opportunity to reset and go back into it.
Well, starts with a roam clear. Last time we saw, I believe was it DCH right on the Legion, and he was the one that his feet were spotted in through the barricade in pool. The last time he died really early, but Sapper got that active kill with the Solus. So Bleed, our experience of dealing with this roam clear, but you know, a lot can go wrong as well with it, as we've seen. Gelida are the ones that have really made the most changes. You know, no more Solus, notably. Bit of a flip of some of these operators. Good late round util with the Goyo, the Smoke, and the Fenrir all really leaning into that time denial and entry denial in that late round.
Some good drone work so far from the support players on the side of Bleed. They've identified that the entire top floor and what it looks like now, the ground floor, is completely vacated by Gelida, who have all fallen back onto the bomb site. IDFC is going to hold onto the blue stairs for a little bit longer, trying to juggle around some of these dread mines and prevent Bleed from getting the early control here. But it is a pretty dangerous spot to play, and you can be cut off from oil, so he wants to fall back pretty early. Meanwhile, though, on the side of Bleed, it's time for these guys to start making some good work out of this mid-round, getting those hatches open, playing the vertical from Reaps, which with the auto ram drones, they should be fairly easy to do. But yeah, so far, Bleed doing some good motions through this mid-round.
Out go the ram drones. We've seen this a lot recently, and it's just beautiful to watch. And on top of that, we've also had Hatch getting worked on. Now Sapper is going to actually impact trick that. Oh, no, he's going to impact trick the next set, perhaps. He only just opened up the hole. Has he got impacts? There you go. There's a good one.
That's pretty dangerous. Reaps is contesting him.
They can find a kill out of this. Either side, that would be huge. Okay, a third Excaris does detonate. If we can have a look at the full HUD, we can see how many are left. So this is the last set, or second last set. Oh,
don't
Reaps.
shoot them off. Ooh.
Yeah, really don't shoot them off. Now, fortunately, there are enough. No way! Reaps should have died there, but Mark didn't land the shot he needed. Reaps gets away with his life and finds a kill. Turdstar, oh, he's lurking. He's going for it, man. Look at him go, Bleed. They've got a 2-player advantage. Turdstar's position revealed. Looking to make this execute work. Turd is kept at bay. He still is alive, and he's looking for this deep angle. Flashes go out. Hoven straight drops down into the fire, but he finds a kill on the back of it. IDFC looks to replace the position as that plant goes down. DCH, he's taken down the backstab from Turd. IDFC 1v3, but that plant has not gone down as of yet. He could clutch up again! How do they keep getting away with it? Thank God, Bleed! Thank God in the 1v1 they got it across the line. Holy shenanigans. What was that from Bleed?
Oh my God.
4v1! It was a 4v1!
I know, another one that comes down to a 1 versus 1 that Aspie's involved in as well. Oh, that poor guy has just been cursed with the 1v1s in this matchup. But Bleed, the reset was what they needed. They take that tactical timeout and they work that map super quick there in that last round there, Dev. I know that ended in a super chaotic way, but like, I'm trying to give
were like-
something to Bleed here. They're doing good, you know?
They do great, but man, Bleed, you guys are amazing. Like, legit, world-class team.
Yeah, amazing.
Don't see many teams that good. But stop giving me a headache in these 4v1s, 3v1s, 2v1s. I swear to God. Desk, please take it away.
Yeah, close end there. I think that got us all on the edge of our seats. Just that just goes to show the beautiful nature that is a game with Gelida in it. Xenox, what have you read into on this one? It felt like it was going to be a near-on onslaught. That very well could have been a 7-0.
Yeah, I mean, it was trending in that direction. I made a very short-handed comment to Gus, and I was like, where were these games when we were up until 4 in the morning and we were looking at like about finishing 20 minutes ago? But no, honestly, at least good for Gelida. They were able to bring it back, and they were able to at least save face. They don't win it out, but still, at least it doesn't look like the beatdown that I think it was trending towards. I think in the end, it's defend the clubhouse, right? I mean, that tells the full tale of the tape.
Yeah, it's funny to watch that game play out the way it does, because I think Dev put it perfectly, Guz. There's not much you can really pinpoint for Bleed, but just apparently clutch moments. They're getting overzealous. What is it?
I mean, Asfi, as mentioned, just kept getting caught in these particular scenarios. There was the first one up above CCTV where he baited his teammate and then lost the clutch, and then there were multiple ones after that. The very last one, though, he was able to get that swing, get the clutch. If Bleed lose that one, that probably could have been the round that kind of broke the camel's back, really, because they had multiple rounds where it was very close. Either very close towards the very end, or they were just never in it, such is the nature of Bleed at times. But they got that one across the line, and ultimately, I think the plaudits go to Gelida for continuing to fight in that match despite things looking grim heading into the second half, and then obviously to Bleed as well, and just being able to close it out and keeping that record running.
Jake, what's your take on Gelida at the moment? It feels like we've had enough games to see the full force. They've obviously taken it to Bleed. Granted, probably could have been closed out a little bit quicker, but where do you feel like they fit in this league at the moment?
I mean, it's difficult. Are they below Fury? They beat Fury all the way back on Play Day 1, which feels like a lifetime ago. I probably would put them just that tiny smidge below Fury. I think maybe in a best of 3, you could argue that they're more than capable, but arguably Fury have probably shown a little bit more internationally and also locally that you'd put them above them, despite that Play Day 1 overtime win. Yeah, I mean, they're not really like far off it, right? I mean, at the end of the day, for Gelida, the issue for mine is they also haven't really beaten a whole lot of other teams. They lost to Elevate, now they've lost to Bleed, so it really is only that overtime win against Fury. We'll know a little bit more about them probably tomorrow when they take on Direwolves. That's the kind of game you've got to be winning. If you lose that, then you've lost to Direwolves, Bleed, and you've also lost to Elevate. The only team you would have beaten is Fury. So I think that doesn't probably then bode well for them going into the playoffs.
Yeah, it's just wild that could potentially happen. I mean, that's a stretch. Obviously, we're trying to open this conversation up a little bit to, I guess, hypothetically look at where Gelida fit into this. It's tough to say, especially after a match like that against Bleed. Clubhouse is it's so brutal on the defense. Barring if anyone watched Oast last night, barring Oast last night, it really is just such a brutal map to start attack on, especially when you're already going uphill against the best team in the region. I think, Guz, as if there wasn't a doubt coming into this league, but I mean, are you certain that they're the best team now?
Yeah, I think it's very fair to say on a night where the late round's tidy, they're going to look even more dominant, because you could see in terms of their ability to set up just default attacking patterns and clear positions and get space, etc. Not really an issue, and defensively sound as well for the most part. It was really just the late round and Gelida having a knack for finding themselves back into pretty stupid and ridiculous positions, and obviously Bleed will know that, and if that's tidied up going forward, they'll continue to be number 1.
All right, well, I'm not sure whether we're going to get an interview yet or whether we're waiting for one, so we can just open this up a little bit, Xenox, and just try to give the players a little bit more time to get sorted. Moving into playoffs, we are kind of talking about the fact that Bleed don't have that many flaws, but very, very clearly, you can wound them. Is that enough to warrant the conversation, maybe outside of Fury actually being able, a team actually being able to contest them?
Yeah, I think that Bleed are a great team, but they certainly have their flaws. We've seen that previously throughout last year and somewhat to also begin this year. They're not infallible. I don't think they're the kind of team that, for instance, you can't be. They're probably more than capable of dropping a map or two come playoff time if they have a bad night, and then you lose that. It can probably snowball. I will say though, I think Bleed are probably in the best position they've ever really been in terms of mental. They look like a really strong, coordinated team across the board. All 5 players typically play well. There's no weak link, so I mean, it's really difficult to play devil's advocate against Bleed. We keep saying, and we've been harping on all league long, they are the #1 team for a reason. They're the team that are favored to go to Manchester. It's just a matter of, will they stumble a little bit like the start of last year, or have they continued to improve? And I think they've continued to improve. I don't see another team beating them, not even Fury. So, but that means the onus is on your Furies, your Gelidas, your Direwolves, etc., to somehow change that narrative.
Well, we've actually got Mentalist here, so we can start chatting to him a little bit more and get some insight. Mentalist, I'm sure you probably heard the back end of our conversation there. We started waffling after a little bit. I do want to get your thoughts at the moment. You know, you guys are. I mean, you've won every game. Granted, 7-3, 7-4s, so it's not like you're absolutely smashing these teams out of the water. But from my perspective, it looks like it is comfortable, which is a strange thing to be saying. 6 days in.
I think fundamentally we're stronger than these teams just without experience alone. So to answer your question, yes, we can win comfortably just because we can do our defaults better, we can coordinate with it better, our fundamentals are stronger. But I think today, for all intents and purposes, today should have been a 7-0. And the fact that we dropped it all the way to 7-4 was, I'm not happy with the way we won. And our attack has a lot of problems like that we need to sort out. And to be honest, if we play like this today, in playoffs, we're going to lose. Teams are going to be more prepared. They're going to counter strat. We're not going to be able to deal with it. I think, yeah, I'm just really upset with the way we played on tap today, and hopefully we can fix that. But otherwise, if we can do everything properly, then beating every team shouldn't be a problem.
Mentalist, unfortunately for Asia League, going from 2 slots to 1 does put a bit of pressure on all of the teams, and there's a lot of good teams vying for that 1 spot. Do you approach the playoffs a little differently this stage compared to, say, last year when there were 2 slots? Do you feel like it might be more pressure on teams come playoff time?
Of course, like before there was the safety net of, you can always be on the other side of the bracket, or you can always win out in the loser bracket, but now you got to beat everyone, right? Straight up. Have no second chances. So of course there's going to be a lot more pressure on every single team that's involved in qualifiers. For us, our goal has always been to just beat everyone in Southeast Asia and make it to the qualifiers. So our goal doesn't really change. And at the end of the day, not having that safety net doesn't really change our mindset. We still have to go in and just get ready to beat everyone.
Speaking on the mental impact of the game today a little bit more in terms of round to round, obviously the late rounds were very, very close multiple times, or Gelida were clutching rounds, etc. How do you, as a team, continue to reset and continue to go again? I know you've mentioned it should have been a 7-0, but you did close it out in the end. How difficult was that in the moment inside of the server?
It was pretty difficult, honestly. It was like a 1v2 that we threw, and then a 2v4, and then we almost threw 1v4 at the end. That was just completely horrendous. And to be honest, I think it's just us, like, at the end of the round, we're not really communicating as much as we need to. Maybe our individual players are like, have their guard down a little bit, not calming enough. Yeah, that's definitely something that we need to look back on the comms and see what happened and fix it individually. But yeah, I do think at the end of the day, today, we didn't come in as prepared as we can be. So hopefully tomorrow, get that fixed. And by the time when playoff comes, this will happen.
Now, look, on the broadcast, you guys are pretty much nigh untouchable. Whenever we mention Bleed, it's pretty much synonymous that we're mentioning victory or something, positive in that light. But you have mentioned the comms. Do you feel like there's anything outside of that you have identified or as a team you've identified needs to be changing moving forward?
I think fundamentally our teams is solid. There isn't anything from the ground up that we do need to change. It's just when you come to become a decent team, all the little improvements come from all the details. And it is important to first recognize these details, know what you can improve, and just day by day improve on them. So yeah, patience is going to be key. But for us this time, I don't think that is the reason. It's just maybe a few of us has our B game or C game today. So we're gonna see like what happened and how we can help with that.
God, that's terrifying. You shouldn't be saying you're bringing your B or C game and you're still doing that to a team. God damn it, Mentalist. Anything you'd like to say before we let you go?
Not much. Just thank you everyone for supporting. Hopefully we'll keep our form in the playoffs and we'll smash it.
Mate, thank you very much for joining us and best of luck for the rest of the BO1s. It's pretty terrifying. I think everyone would agree. If that is what you look like on your worst day, clearly Mentalist is not happy about that, guys. Clearly he's quite... shaken might not be the right word, but he did look quite shaken in terms of, you know, his frustration levels. If that's what you're still doing to teams on your worst day in the league thus far, I don't want to see their best day. I don't want to see it.
Yeah, I think he's being quite harsh, but also reasonable and fair on his team's performance today. If you are a top team, you realistically shouldn't be allowing a lesser team back into a lot of those unfavorable rounds in which they were able to clutch up. So as he mentioned, they'll look back at that and try to identify exactly what went wrong, whether it was communication or, you know, position or a read or whatever the case was. And as long as they refine that going forward, any improvement is going to be massive for this team who are already at the top currently. So I liked what we heard there from Mentalist, some really good insight, and clearly not taking this position for granted, and know that the job is far from done. It is so far from done, it's not even funny. And there's definitely, I think, probably a bit of reflection as well on last year. We all know what happened where they bombed out, and they don't want a repeat of that this year.
Look, I think it's very similar to the conversation we had about Odium and Bliss back in on Monday for the OS League, Jake. Whereas, you know, it's kind of good to get these out of the way, right? It's good to realize that, you know, you might be the indomitable force in the league, but you still have your weaknesses.
Yeah, and I agree with guys. I think Mentalist was a little bit harsh, but good to be harsh rather than soft and just kind of brush these performances. They understand there's a lot of pressure come playoff time, and you know, performing not quite at your best does then allow weaknesses to creep in. Interesting, we see Turd there as the MVP, statistically the lowest rated player on the team coming into tonight. Not that he's far behind, he was still like 1.08, but I mean that performance tonight, and he actually, to give him a bit of a spotlight, has continued to improve as the stage has gone on. Started a little bit slow, but I think he's actually peaking at the right time, and certainly gives Bleed another avenue. Ashley was the one who was a little bit poor tonight, typically a player who is quite strong up with Reaps and Hoven, but they had Turd that was able to kind of fill the gap. So a really strong performance from Bleed once again, taking down a decent Gelida team. So I think Bleed will obviously be a little bit unhappy with that comeback, but nevertheless should be happy with the win.
Yep, nigh flawless at the moment for Bleed Esports. They've still got 2 more games to go in their best of ones, as we still have 2 more games left for the night. Join Dev and Mandy on the desk as we return from the break.